In December 2022, the police received intelligence about suspicious bank transactions and online activity linked to the downloading of indecent images of children from the dark web. However, it wasn't for another 2 months until officers discovered the identity of the man that they'd been investigating was in fact one of their own colleagues. Financial methods and an IP address were linked to an address in the Bridgend area of Wales, and further checks led to the offender being identified as 23-year-old Lewis Edwards of South Wales Police. In the following days, a search warrant was executed at his home address in Bridgend, which he shared with his parents, and at 7:15 AM on the 8th of February 2023, he was found in his bedroom laying with 2 mobile phones, as he was arrested and remanded into custody. Following his arrest, an accelerated misconduct hearing was held, which delivered the sanction of his dismissal, promptly followed by his resignation. He was subsequently added to the barred list, preventing him from returning to policing. A search was carried out at his home, and in the defendant's bedroom, a number of heavily encrypted electronic devices were seized, such as mobile phones, laptop computers, USB sticks, and a hard drive, with a Blackmailed manual also being recovered. Lewis confirmed that all of the exhibits apart from a hard drive belonged to him, and that he had access to them. Some of the devices were unable to be accessed, with Lewis declining to provide pins and passwords for these devices. When describing the scene, Detective Superintendent Tracy Rankin said that it was clearly networked in such a way that if you were to unplug things and take it away, that the device would be wiped automatically. Detectives were able to build appropriate software and mechanisms to download the information from the devices, whilst being conscious that it was a sophisticated setup that had triggers to wipe everything. Following his arrest, Lewis was taken into police custody and was interviewed on 2 occasions. He was asked how he obtained the material, if he had access to dark web, whether he traded or shared indecent images, if he had spoken to children whilst pretending to be a child himself, and whether there is evidence of him engaging in sexual communications with children and inciting them to perform sexual activity. With his voice barely audible and a blank expression on his face, he answered no comment in an unconcerned manner. After an investigation, the devices seized from his property provided the full scale of his offending. He had amassed over 4,500 indecent images of children from around 210 victims, with some girls yet to be identified. The victims were aged between 10 and 16 years old, with images ranging from the most serious classification of Category A to Category C. The 23-year-old who had joined the police force in January 2021 had committed the offences between November 2020 and February 2023 before he was eventually arrested. The images had been obtained through interaction with underage girls on Snapchat, where he pretended to be a 14-year-old boy in order to gain their trust, before requesting for his victims to engage in various sexual activities. Without their knowledge, he installed an app on his Android phone which allowed him to record the person he was talking to without them knowing. Having got the images from the child and wanting more, when they wouldn't comply with his request to provide more images, he blackmailed many of them, saying that he would post the images on social media platforms to their friends and family if they refused. He was subsequently charged with a total of 161 offences, which included blackmail, inciting a child to engage in sexual activity, making a child watch a sex act, sexual communication, making indecent images of children, possessing indecent images of children, and a single charge of distribution. He appeared for his hearing at Cardiff Crown Court shortly after his arrest, where he confirmed his identity and entered his plea. He pleaded guilty to the 161 charges of child sex offences against him and was subsequently remanded back into custody until his trial date. The South Wales Police Online Investigation Team said it had already identified a number of victims, but was still working to identify others as a priority. With the investigation ongoing, specialist officers continue to support and update the victims throughout the investigation. Detective Superintendent Tracy Rankin, the head of the Police Online Investigation Team, said, "Our priority has been to identify the victims from Snapchat usernames and work with police forces across the UK to ensure they are safeguarded and supported. The scale and seriousness of the offences identified by our investigation is extreme. His abhorrent behaviour involved threatening and blackmailing his young victims who lived in fear of him. Our investigation has involved forensically examining encrypted computer equipment and mobile devices, which led to the recovery of shocking material. The strength of his evidence has resulted in him admitting the charges against him. Assistant Chief Constable Danny Richards defended the force's vetting process and said that it was recently one of only 2 in the country to be assessed as good by His Majesty's Inspectorate for the way they carried out vetting of officers and staff, and how effectively they protected information and data they held, along with how well corruption was dealt with. He added that the public will be as shocked and sickened as he was that such appalling offences have been committed by a serving police officer. The behaviour of Lewis Edwards only served to damage the public's trust and confidence in policing, and undermines the work of the vast majority of responsible, hard-working police officers who serve the communities of South Wales with courage and pride. Lucy Dowdall, Specialist Prosecutor in the CPS's Organised Child Sexual Abuse Unit, said that it was particularly shocking that a serving police officer was privately targeting children online, grooming them, and forcing them to satisfy his own sexual interest. Over a period of 4 years, he engaged in sustained abuse, threatening and blackmailing his victims to provide him with explicit material. She said that he wrongly believed he was above the law, thinking that his role as a police officer would protect him from investigation and prosecution, which he arrogantly told his victims. This case demonstrated the determination of law enforcement and prosecutors to bring all online sexual offenders to justice. She stated that this case also illustrated that the dark web is not a safe place for sexual offenders to operate. Once intelligence identified Lewis, South Wales Police moved rapidly to arrest him, and he was charged soon afterwards. The CPS Organised Child Sexual Abuse Unit was set up in April 2022 as a specialist unit dedicated to prosecuting child sexual abuse in all its forms. On Monday the 23rd of October 2023, the trial of former police constable Lewis Edwards at Cardiff Crown Courts began. Many of the victims and their families sat in the packed public gallery for the hearing. However, 24-year-old Lewis Edwards refused to attend his expected 3-day trial. The extensive list of charges against Lewis includes inciting a child to engage in sexual activity, making a child watch a sex act, demanding indecent images of children, and making indecent images of children. Lewis had previously admitted guilt to 22 counts of blackmail, 138 child sex offences, and an additional charge of refusing to disclose passwords to electronic devices. Prosecutor Roger Griffiths outlined the severity of Lewis's crimes, emphasising the manipulation and coercion employed. He not only recorded indecent material, but also sent explicit videos of himself performing sex acts. The court heard that the police investigation uncovered the disturbing online interactions between the defendant and his victims. Over a 3-year period, he posed as a 14-year-old boy on Snapchat to groom over 200 girls between the ages of 10 and 16 online, gaining their trust into sending him explicit images and videos of themselves in school uniforms, which he covertly recorded. Lewis not only solicited indecent images, but he then used the recordings to blackmail his victims into sending increasingly graphic and explicit images and videos, saying that he would post the images he already had to the friends and relatives of the victims online. He told the victims that he wouldn't be investigated as he was a police officer. The former police constable also threatens to harm their families if they did not comply with his demands, including one case where he threatens to bomb the house of one of his victims and shoot her parents if she stopped sending him images. Lewis had preyed on a total of 210 girls between November 2020 and February 2023, with the police recovering images relating to 207 of the victims, highlighting the scale and impact of his crimes. Investigators found that on 30 occasions, Lewis was in contact with his victims during working hours. The court heard distressing details of Lewis's manipulative behaviour, with victims reporting psychological grooming and threats, even when they were crying or distressed. The judge emphasised that Lewis continued his abuse, even when victims disclosed self-harm or suicidal thoughts. Prosecutor Roger Griffiths revealed that Lewis would coerce his victims into taking specific actions, and would berate them if they didn't comply. He would send messages such as, "Good girl, but get that top off. If you try and waste time, I will share everything. I'm waiting. Don't reply unless it's a video." The court also heard that Lewis threatened some victims by claiming that others who had refused his demands had taken their own lives. The messages were sent late at night and often lasted until the early hours of the morning. He sent one victim, who was 12 years old at the time, her address and said he would kill her if she didn't send him images. She complied with his threat and sent more nude images to him. She said she was shocked upon being asked for the images and remembered crying. Another victim, who was 13 when Lewis made contact, described how their communication began when she was about to start a new school. Believing that she was speaking to a teenage boy, she sent him images and complied with his request to take sexual pictures in her school uniform. She later stated in court, "I was terrified, hurt, and let down. I will never get over this trauma." Many of the victims would beg him to delete the images which he covertly recorded, with heartbreaking audio and video footage played in court of the victims' pleas for empathy. In one video, a girl of 13 is exposing her breast, whilst crying and wiping tears from her eyes. Another victim, who was just 12 years old, sent him a text that read, "Just delete them please, I am sick of them now. Just delete them and I'll do more. Leave me the fuck alone, dude, I am serious." Lewis responded apathetically, texting, "If you leave, I'll ruin your life right now. Now do the vids I asked for and stand further back." The victim sent images of herself masturbating whilst visibly in distress and crying, with Lewis only responding by telling her to not cover her face. One girl was forced to send around 50 videos in one day, where she was forced to insert a brush inside her private parts. She said she was so upset, but he kept telling her to carry on. She said that Lewis, who told her name was James, said that if she stopped sending, then he would put all of the images of her all over the internet. He said, "Oh, you wouldn't want me to expose you, would you? So do it, or you will find out what will happen." The defendant told her he would share the images on his well-known Snapchat. On one occasion, he sent her a video of two people having sex and told her to watch it. The people in the video having sex were a young girl and boy of similar age. One victim told her father that she had sent Lewis an indecent image via Snapchat and he was asking for more and threatening to share it if she did not comply. Her father took her phone and messaged the individual saying, "This is her dad. Stop now. What you are doing is illegal." To this, Lewis replied, "LOL," with her father then replying with a photograph of himself with the caption, "Just in case you think I'm joking, I'm her dad. Stop now." From there, he sensed the individual seemed to panic, as they begged him, "Please don't say anything. I won't share them. I won't do anything." From the panic in the tone, he assumed that he was speaking with a child. He suspended her Snapchat account and reported the episode to Snapchat. He said that he also reported the incident to the police, in which they received advice about online safety. But this was not the last time the family heard from Lewis. From her new Snapchat account, she received a friend request from who she believed to be a girl at her school. The moment she accepted the friend request, she got more threats of a similar nature. Lewis sent a message saying, "Send me more nudes. I'll release the photos and send them to your friend." Her dad again contacted the individual telling them to stop. This time Lewis didn't respond and didn't try to contact the victim again. Once Lewis had got the initial picture from his victims, he would change. One girl of 13 after sending the first picture said, "You've got it, now leave me alone." But he sadistically replied, "Well, I've changed my mind," and threatened to leak it if she didn't send more. The girl sent another explicit image in which she can be seen crying. Lewis showed a sadistic thrill in blackmailing the victims, threatening to ruin their lives if they did not send more images. After one girl threatened to jump off the roof, he told her to share more images. "Before I share this shit, do it and save yourself. If I haven't seen it by then, it's going everywhere." The girl begged, "Please don't post it, please don't make me do any more." But Lewis callously responded, "You're going to have to do more." In one message, the girl said, "I have to forget it and play it down. Last night was really the last straw for me. I couldn't cope physically being here. I just want you to leave me alone. I don't have to know who you are, just want all of my shit deleted and you can leave me alone." She could be heard crying and said, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for whatever I have done to you." In haunting pixelated video footage played to the court, the girl can be heard crying and saying, "Do I have to?" begging Lewis to stop, as he forced her to pose sexually. As a result of their treatment by Lewis, some of the girls have self-harmed or had suicidal thoughts. A statement from one mother read to the court said, "My daughter has suicidal thoughts, says she doesn't want to be here anymore and has self-harm marks on her legs. She's had counselling sessions but has become distant and secretive. She doesn't trust people she should trust, like the police. Not one of the above issues occurred before the incident. It's changed not only her life, but our lives forever." Another victim said she self-harmed after she found out Lewis was a full-grown man and a police officer. She said, "A few weeks later I self-harmed. I didn't want to live anymore because of everything that went on. I didn't want to tell my mum and dad because I thought I'd get a row. I remember when we were talking, I felt frightened because he was threatening and felt I had to do what he asked." The children he abused describe losing all confidence. One said, "I don't trust the police at all. Before this, I would have called the police if I was in trouble, but now I don't feel like that. I don't trust them anymore." Her mum said, "I feel I've lost a small part of my baby girl. Her innocence has been torn from her, and she will never get it back. She will always have those images in her mind. Will she ever trust that people are who they say they are? She's now scared of the police, security guards, and men in general. She is a shell of her former self. I failed to protect my daughter. I can't console her or assure her everything is okay. When I think how scared she was, alone in the dark just a few yards away, breaks my heart." On Wednesday the 25th of October 2023, Lewis Edwards was given 13 life sentences to serve a minimum term of 12 years. Judge Tracy Lloyd Clark described his behaviour as cruel and sadistic, adding that she found he was dangerous and posed a high risk of danger to children. Despite Lewis's refusal to appear for sentencing, Judge Lloyd Clark expressed the inability to force his attendance. She described his pattern of behaviour, stating that he groomed his victims, psychologically manipulating them until he had gained control. She highlighted the aggravating factors, including the prolonged duration of the offences, the high number of victims, and the nature of the images involved. After handing down the sentence, Judge Tracy Lloyd Clark said, "It is clear that he not only gained sexual gratification from his offending, but that he also enjoyed the power and control that he had over these young girls. His reaction to their distress can properly be described as cruel and sadistic. His offending is significantly aggravated by the fact that he was a serving police officer. Many of his victims and their families have said that his actions have caused them to lose trust in the police." While acknowledging that Lewis did not exploit his police position to commit these crimes, the judge emphasised that he alone bore the responsibility for his actions. She added that the sentence was aggravated by the period of time over which these offences were committed, the number of victims, and the number of images. Despite the significant harm caused to the reputation of South Wales Police, the judge recognised the force's efforts in bringing Lewis to justice. Assistant Chief Constable Danny Richards reiterated that there is no place for individuals who abuse their responsibilities as police officers, emphasising that Lewis had passed vetting when joining the force, with no indications of his involvement in such crimes at that time. One teenage girl addressed the judge in person, while several mothers sat in the witness box to describe how their children's lives had been changed forever. "I want my voice to be heard. This is who I am. I thought I was talking to a really nice boy who liked me, complimented me, and made me feel good about myself. I told him I didn't want to send images anymore, and he blackmailed me by threatening me and my family. I felt terrified, horrified, and let down." Her mother added, "The smirk he gave us in court shows that he has no remorse. I do not think he can, or will have any understanding, or care how he has impacted his victims. Lewis Edwards, I want you to know that as a family we will never forgive you, and we feel nothing for you but hate." Another one of the girls said, "I was a little girl. I feel embarrassed, disgusted, and abused. I lost my innocence. I know the police are there to help us, but how can I call the police now if I am in danger? I would not be able to trust the people who are there to keep us safe." Another mother said, "On numerous occasions, I know she contemplated suicide and still refers to those dark times when she felt hollow and worthless. I find it incomprehensible an individual is capable of creating such fear and torment of a child. Further statements included a girl saying that she had lost trust in the police as a result of this offence. She said, "If something went wrong in the future, I wouldn't trust the police to deal with it right. The police are supposed to look after us, and they didn't look after me." One mother, who read her statement to the court, said, "Lewis Edwards, I want you to know what you have done to my child and my family. You have broken us. I can't express with words how angry I am that you have taken my daughter's innocence and childhood away from her, especially when she was in her own home, where she should have felt safe. You have broken her to the point that she didn't want to live anymore. I want the courts to understand the irreparable damage you have caused us all." Many more victim impact statements were read out by the girls and their mothers to an empty dock due to Lewis's refusal to attend his trial. Many of the young girls targeted by Lewis self-harmed and reported feeling suicidal, with one left so traumatized that she slept with a hammer under her pillow. The number of Lewis's victims and the 161 offences he pleaded guilty to makes him one of the most prolific abusers of children in British criminal history. In 2016, Richard Huckle was convicted of 71 charges of sexual offences against children, committed while he posed as a Christian teacher in Malaysia. And the next year in 2017, Matthew Falder, a Cambridge graduate, pleaded guilty to 137 charges relating to 46 victims after using anonymous accounts to force children to carry out degrading acts. And that brings to a close the horrific case of Lewis Edwards, whose barbaric crimes have changed the lives of so many. Lawless Underground would wish to extend its sincere condolences to all of those involved in this case. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, then please consider liking the video and subscribing to Lawless Underground for more crime-related content. If you have any suggestions or requests for future videos, then please let me know in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, and goodbye for now from Lawless Underground.